Persephone long.
You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the capitalist corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the capitalist corner.
Welcome, everybody, to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair, Michael Liebowitz. Who's also the host of various and sundry shows. Michael, you've got so many shows going on now, I can't even keep track of them anymore. You've got The Rational Egoist. Are you there? Are you present? You just looking
I'm present, yes. No, I'm present and I'm here, and I just did a great interview with Sheldon Richmond concerning the article that we discussed on Friday. I will be releasing that soon once this episode is over. Then today we have Everyday Ethics at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then at 3:15 Eastern Time, Persephone and I are going to be starting a new podcast, Crime, Corrections, and Culture, and that should be wonderful.
Fantastic. Plus, we have Self-Made Soul on the weekends, and folks, I also do a horror roundtable. We had a viewing of an unfortunate horror movie, Michael, which was a sequel. It was a sequel, and like so many sequels, it was nowhere near as good as the first one. It was Escape Room 2. Very bad. I don't recommend it for anybody. I'll get into the details at some other point for anybody who's interested in that kind of stuff. So, Michael, today first thing we're going to talk about is presidential power. We seem to be at an interesting point in history where Congress has relinquished its job and ceded a lot of authority to the executive. Now, it's not like the presidents in the past haven't taken a great deal of authority upon themselves. With the permission of Congress. But this president seems to be taking it to a whole new level. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, he's got, an emergency for everything. There was an emergency that allowed him the implementation of tariffs. There was the emergency he claimed that he had to, invoke the insurrection or the Alien Enemies Act. There was an emergency that required him to bomb the boats in Venezuela and then, of course, to remove the leader of Venezuela. And most recently, of course, we have the unconstitutional war. That was an emergency that required him to act without Congress. Are you looking for more?
No, but let's get into some of the weeds with respect to that. I mean, what's so dangerous about that for American citizens? It seems like the victims of these egregious overreaches of power are other people from other countries, not necessarily the Americans.
Well, I don't know about that. When he invoked the Aliens Act and wanted to put the National Guard or the regular military in American cities, that certainly would affect Americans. And we got a $2 super chat, by the way, from Jenna Kleem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenna.
And we definitely love the super chats and super stickers. Nobody here has asked me how my taxes went the other day, so I'll take that as a grave insult.
We just assume they went badly, Michael.
No. You can't just do that. But anyways, and of course, once a president has given power, it's unlikely that it's going to stay where the people want it to stay, right? It's like judicial activism. You may love it when it grants you the right to abortion. But then when it comes along and does something that, you don't like, maybe allows for, the Supreme Court to legislate in relation to environmental issues, then you may not like it. So it's the principle that matters, folks. And the President of the United States is definitely supposed to be constrained according to Article 2 powers and not just whatever anybody else wishes him to do or what he wants to do.
Amen. Should we read some quotes from some of our founders? Because I think they're very good.
Sure. In relation to, I'll find them real quickly here.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lee, for the euro and 99 centavos. We haven't seen you for a while, so it's good to have your sassiness back in the chats. Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, on checking executive power, said it is better to keep the wolf out of the fold than to trust to drawing his teeth and talons after he shall have entered. On limiting government, he says, bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. Power must be divided and balanced, as that no one could transcend their legal limits. Those entrusted with power have, and in time and by slow operations, perverted it into tyranny. And then James Madison said the consolidation of power, whether of one, a few, or many, is the very definition of tyranny. War is feared because it multiplies executive influence and discretionary power. Now, of course, in the United States, there's, hold on. Thank you, Robert. Robert gives $1.99 and asks how my taxes went the other day. I will answer that once we get done with this diatribe.
And also, Lee has brought her father into the fold, so I want to welcome Lee to the capitalist fold. It takes a lot of cojones to be a capitalist over there in the UK. So wait, go ahead, continue. You're saying you're talking about the founding fathers' perspective on executive power, Michael. We've been saying this for months and months and months and months, and repeating it since the beginning of the Iran war. And we've been
that hasn't been going on for months and months. So I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch.
No, but we've been talking about the principle of limiting executive power, because this is Trump's second term, and he's more or less doing whatever the hell he wants to do. Yeah. And we've been talking about limiting executive power and why that is a benefit to the American people for ages now.
You were in Death Wish 4, Mark?
Oh God. Yeah, I had like 3 lines in Death Wish 4. It was at the very beginning. It was at the very beginning. By the
way, and Lee's dad is named Ian, not Lee.
I didn't say Lee.
You did say Lee. You said, Lee, welcome to the Capitalist Corner. Welcome to the fold.
Oh, I meant Lee's dad. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Yeah. Well, his name is Ian.
Thank you, Ian.
So anyways, there's 3 separate branches, and Congress, for instance, is given the authority to declare war. They also are given the power of the purse, but they've shown little interest in reeling in the executive, which leaves it to the judiciary. And, they did rein him in on tariffs, and they did rein him in on his use of the Aliens Act, and that's a good thing. I think they're likely to rein him in on this executive order on birthright citizenship. But I was just looking today, at some quotes from the founders on the court. There is no liberty, from Alexander Hamilton, if the power of judging be not separated from the legislative and executive powers. As liberty can have nothing to fear from the judiciary alone, but would have everything to fear from its union with either of the other departments, nothing can contribute so much to its firmness and independence as permanency in office. This quality may therefore be justly regarded as an indispensable ingredient in its constitution, and in a great measure as the citadel of public justice and public security. Also, he says, let me find it, a good quote. If then the courts of justice are to be considered as the bulwarks of a limited constitution against legislative encroachments, executive encroachments, I'll throw in also, this consideration will afford a strong argument for the permanent tenure of judicial offices, since nothing will contribute so much as this to the independent spirit in the judges, so they certainly have to, be separate. The judiciary, from the nature of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution. And it goes on to say, he talks somewhere in here that I can't find right now about the necessity of not enforcing unconstitutional laws. Gouverneur Morris said that the legislature continually tries to, make itself bigger. Gouverneur Morris advocated that the judiciary have a negative on unconstitutional laws. And James Wilson, the judiciary ought to have an opportunity of remonstrating against projected encroachments on the people as well as on themselves. So he was therefore, let them have a share in the revisionary power, and they will have an opportunity of taking notice of these characteristics of a law. The executive and judicial ought to have a joint a negative. It does not confer upon the judicial department a power superior in its general nature to that of the legislature. There's talking about judicial review, but it confers upon it in instances and for purposes the power of declaring and enforcing the superior power of the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. So the basic idea here is the Constitution is supposed to be the supreme law of the land. And the Constitution puts a restraint on all three branches of government. But the executive right now, due to some, what's the word I'm looking for here? Inaction, maybe, on the part of the legislator, the executive is grown way beyond the power that was intended for him. And perhaps the judges will rein it in a little bit more. That we can only hope.
Well, Michael, I think since the dawn of the progressive era, the office of the presidency, well, actually since the Civil War, has grown with intent by the person who occupies the office and with the permission of the American people, since they've allowed this to happen. I just want to read some of the thoughts of some of the more powerful executives out there that shaped the office after Washington to be as powerful as it is. Theodore Roosevelt had a theory called the stewardship theory. Yeah. Roosevelt argued that the president is the steward of the people. Now, of course, they justify this by the claim that, well, the president is the only person whom the entire nation elects, and so it confers upon him a special responsibility not afforded to the other elected officials. Now, he can act unless forbidden by law, stating, quote, I decline to adopt the view that what was imperatively necessary for the nation could not be done by the president unless he could find some specific authorization to do it. That is a frightening concept, Michael, and this is one of the first real cracks that we see in the Constitution. Abraham Lincoln, preservation of the Union. During the Civil War, Lincoln argued that necessary actions, while otherwise unconstitutional, could be justified to save the nation. My duty was to preserve the Union by all means which I could command, including the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, Michael, and a number of other violations of the Constitution and executive power. Richard Nixon, and this is chilling. This is in our lifetime, 1977, maybe not your lifetime.
It is. I was a year old. I know you were like 26.
The interview with David Frost, Nixon claimed that actions taken for national security are legally justified, stating, well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Yes.
That sounds like it could come out of the mouth of Trump.
Yeah.
And I thought Nixon was a tad
does.
more sophisticated than our present president, but I guess I'm wrong.
Well, yeah. The bottom line is that executive authority is out of control, and no more is this indicated than in the war with Iran. It's clearly a war, although he's shied from calling it war at times, called it war at other times. The bottom line is he's supposed to go to Congress first, and he did not do that. And there's no escaping that, right? And, we've talked about this. The people that are cheering it on, when he does it once again in an area that you don't like he was doing in immigration, you're going to have a very difficult time appealing to this. It's that simple.
Which is why we stand on principle, so we're consistent across the board, and we can make appeals that are consistent. Kira Felix said Lincoln was not the hero everyone thinks he is. A lot of problems today go back to Lincoln. He certainly expanded the office of the presidency to unprecedented lengths, and I don't think it's really retracted since then. So you're not wrong, Akira. Even though I have a fondness for Lincoln in some ways, I get that as well. So, Michael, did we talk about this enough? Or what do you think what do you think can happen now in the future? How can the legislative branch reclaim its power?
Well, ultimately, I think that they kind of, they get the best of both worlds. I think they like to not be held accountable, and so they allow it to go. And it always comes back, Mark, to us. And by us, I don't mean you, me, and, well, we count Persephone. But no, because she's not an American. I don't even know if she lives in a real country, South Africa. But anyway, it comes down to Americans. Like, right, we need to step up to the plate and hold these people accountable. Stop being tribalist. Stop just voting for our team. Actually become informed about the issues for which, these congressmen and presidents are dealing. That's what it comes down to. We have to do it if we want change.
Yeah, I mean, if you're disturbed by the growth of the parasitic political class and their contempt for the Constitution, you have to look inward, folks, because it's the American people that have allowed it to happen. Ultimately, the political class is still responsive to the American people. And once we transitioned over into a spoil system democracy, Michael, where politicians have the power to pay off constituencies with subsidies and special privileges, people started getting a taste for the easy money, for the easy win, and they started letting go of the Constitution for their immediate short-term gain. But the long-term loss, Michael, is a loss of liberty, which, folks, that's no small thing. You might not feel it now, but once you've given the government the power to be capricious, it will turn back around on you. It is just a matter of time. So, Michael, what topic did you want to deal with next? Because I know
My
you had
taxes. My taxes.
Oh, yeah. Talk about your taxes.
Okay, so I go the other day down the street here, all prepared. I thought I had to pay $2,500, and I was not happy about that. Yeah, I was not happy with that.
No, you shouldn't have to pay anything.
No, I do have to pay something.
I mean, given the way the rules are and given your income level, I would think you would not have to pay anything.
Well, according to the IRS, which unfortunately, when I go down there, I cannot say, well, look, Mark Pellegrino says I don't have to pay anything. I have to actually, it's like the Zycam thing all over again. Evidently, if I'm listening to you, I'm going to end up screwed one way or another. So no, I'm not listening to that. I went down here, it's down the street, and so if it's a 1099, so it's self-employment. So right off the bat, there's a self-employment tax you have to pay. So, but the guy I sit down across from, I get there and he says to me, okay, he's asking me about all these things that I can write off and none of them apply to me. I said, no, not that either. Nope. So finally it gets to, well, what about you drive for your job? Yes, I do. Okay, we're going to put down 11,000 miles that you've driven for your job, and that'll take quite a bit off. And I said, okay, I don't know if that's how much I've driven. He says, oh, don't worry about it. That's what we're going with. And so,
well, if the IRS does decide to audit you, you're going to have to come up with a calendar that proves that you've driven 11,000 miles, by the way. So it's going to require some reverse engineering.
Well, there's no way. I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, which is what I told the next lady that came in to interview me to review the thing. Also, my phone that I pay $100 a month for, I was able to write that off because I use my phone in a job. But anyways, I finally got my federal tax down to $808, which I had saved, which was great. And I'm getting a return from the state for $260.
There you go.
Because of property tax and other things that I do here in the state. So it all worked out for me. I ended up paying less than what I thought, which made me feel very happy because Jim says stop making admissions.
That's true. We are publicly talking about how you should cheat the IRS. But look, they're stealing.
Well, but here's the thing. No,
it's okay. It's okay to lie to a thief.
No, it is. But I didn't lie to anybody because the bottom line is I do drive for my job. I do go all over the place. I also took 2 trips to San Diego that I could have written off for networking purposes had I been paying attention and knew what the hell I was doing, which I don't. Right? So, yeah. I mean, I could have written off a lot more if I'd been paying attention. As it is, I wrote off my driving, and who knows how much, who knows how much I drove.
Daniel Suska 78 says you don't earn enough. Get a good CPA. I know it's sort of a hard thing to get a good CPA when you don't earn enough as it is. But Michael, I don't know that you should be paying that tax, but that's just me.
Are these? I got to say something. Evidently, the people here in the chat just, I guess, don't know me. They're actually arguing on here. They're saying, how does Michael not know South Africa is a country?
Yeah. Folks, you're falling into a Liebowitz trap here. He's joking.
It's not even a trap.
Well, it sort of is, because sometimes you can sound like you're not joking and people will take you seriously just because of the tone in your voice. When what you're saying is absurd, they're not listening to what you're saying, but how you're saying it.
Well, all right. I guess. I mean, maybe those are the same people that think gullible's in the dictionary, right? They probably believe it's in there. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So, well, thank you for telling us how you got ripped off by the IRS. How they
did get ripped off by the IRS.
How they stole what, $400 from you? I guess in the end, $400 that you could use. Well, in the end, isn't that what it was? You got a $200 tax credit. You paid $600
from the states. From the state, the feds took $800 from me. Did they take it yet? Let me check.
Oh, so it's 600. In the end, they stole 600 from you, and they made you feel like. Yeah, they made you feel like they gave you a break with the state giving you a break for 200. So, look, man, that sucks.
I do not feel like anybody gave me a break.
That's $600 that you could use, Michael, to enrich your life in so many ways. That's now going into the black hole that we know as the national debt, feeding the parasitic political class, folks. That's what we do when they steal our money from us. One day, the people will get sick of being ripped off. I hope. Well, Michael, what did you say you wanted to talk about after we've talked about your taxes? Because I think we've exhausted that. We've now incriminated you in case the IRS wants to audit you. We've made tons of admissions out here in the public forum, and that could be used against you in an audit.
I don't care. What are they going to do? Really, what are they going to do?
Well, they go after folks who don't have a lot of resources, Michael, because people who have resources have tax lawyers.
Okay, so then, what are they going to do? Say, look, dude, you made $19,000 in a year.
What are they going to do? What they can do is they can put a lien on your income, on your bank account. They can do a lot of things. They can make it very difficult for you to live. Wait a minute. Lee is admitting that she doesn't pay taxes. I don't earn enough because my job won't give me any hours. That sucks. So, Michael, let's move on to the next topic. Executive power. We could probably talk about this all day since Trump loves executive power. But
I'm aggravated today. I'm aggravated.
Well, yeah, I get it. You've been ripped off.
No, I don't care about. I care about that, but that's not why I'm aggravated.
Why are you aggravated?
I didn't commit fraud, dude. I know if I
James, let's
fraud,
not go there. I'm sort of exaggerating just for effect. He's been honest in his tax returns, as honest as he can be. The guy who helped him with it, a little questionable, because he's like, we don't care about the mileage, which is
he didn't say that. He made an estimate. What he did was this. He said, where do you drive for your job? So I told him the various places I drive. So based on where I drive, he estimated how many miles I go.
Michael, you're guilty with the IRS no matter what you do. The laws are such that you're a criminal whether you're trying to obey the letter of the law or not. Is that something you're going to talk about, by the way, in your show on criminality in the prison system, that there are something like 4,000 laws that somebody is violating one law every day and committing a felony every day, even though they're not intending to? Did you hear that? Did you tell me that, or am I just getting that from somewhere else?
I believe that's from a book. Look this up, Persephone. I believe this is from a book from Harvey Silverglate, who, by the way, I interviewed. Just so you know, he's the founder of FIRE. But no, I'm pissed off. I'm so sick. I'm going to alienate everybody. I don't care. I'm so sick.
Why stop now, Michael?
Yeah, of libertarians and objectivists who every time somebody disagrees with them, revert to the old, you're being dishonest. The intrinsicism of these fucking people, they think they've got some lightning bolt that struck inside their skull that granted them truth, and that to disagree with them It's just a horrible thing to do. And a lot of the time, they're wrong. And obviously so. Obviously so. I tagged Jim into one of these discussions this morning, and I think he'll love it. I think he's going to be happy.
Bringing in the
about this.
heavyweights, baby.
Well, look, someone told me this morning because I posted. Let me find what I posted here. View post. I said one of the biggest disappointments, and this is true. Yeah, he wrote something called 3 Felonies a Day. Yeah. One of the biggest disappointments I've had since getting out of prison is seeing how many libertarians and objectivists treat their views as religious dogma. Far too many see disagreement with them as a kind of sin, thinking nobody could possibly disagree honestly with their conclusions. On top of that, many show no willingness to respectfully engage with opponents. It's utterly ridiculous. So now somebody comes in and tells me, I need examples. As if you, first of all, if you're not already aware of this, then there's a chance that you are part of the problem, right? So I told them, and one of the things that I mentioned was the objectivist who got upset with me when I said that what is objectively moral for one person may not be moral for another. The person responded, "This one I have a problem with." And he quotes what I said, and he says, "It demonstrates a lack of understanding of objectivism." I told him politely, dude, if this is your view, you are the one who disagrees, who doesn't understand objectivism. Because it's clear as day that objectivism teaches that you act in your own interest, right? So if I'm a diabetic, and my pancreas isn't functioning properly, it's in my interest, i.e., it's moral, for me to take insulin. If somebody that's not a diabetic wants to shoot up insulin, it'd be a big immoral mistake, right? Or an immoral decision. The fact that people that claim that they're upper echelon objectivists that think that. But anyway, I tagged Jim in, and Jim can go straighten the situation out.
Everybody thinks they're a philosopher after they read Rand, Michael. Even if they don't study her, they think reading her stuff once or maybe even twice qualifies them to be, on the level of a Peikoff or an Oncargate.
But it's the libertarians as well. Somebody said this morning, they asked this question. They said, "I've seen zero evidence that Iran is building a nuclear weapon. Does anybody know of any evidence?" And I said, well, sure. They enriched to 60% uranium, which is evidence. People got in immediately, well, they weren't doing back then. That's not relevant. I don't care when they started. The point is they did it now. Oh, then why this, why that? And it's like, okay, guys, I didn't say this was proof. You need to differentiate between proof and evidence. The claim was there's no evidence. That's simply not true, and it's obviously not true. Then somebody else came to me and says, oh, why do you support this war? And I said, well, there's a hell of a jump, right? The guy said, is there any evidence?
The guy clearly hasn't been listening to our show.
Right, but the problem is with that is you need to understand your opponent's arguments. To say there's no evidence, you're just straw manning. You're not actually engaging the truth. It's the same thing when somebody says, as one objectivist said on the other end, they've got ICBMs. No, they don't. I mean, they just don't. Not according to any evidence. You do not buttress your case if it's based on falsehoods. I don't care which side of an argument you're on. You have to acknowledge the truth. That's what's relevant, not your ideological squabbles. But when people cling that way, it reminds me of religion, and that's got me aggravated.
Well, speaking of religion, Michael, why don't we segue into the Easter tweets that were posted by government departments proclaiming Christ and Christ, Christ is risen, really pushing the Christian narrative, Michael, that the Republicans adopted a long time ago, but never as overtly as today. At least when, I mean, certainly Reagan really got the Christian conservatism into the Republican Party and made the two inseparable. But now, Michael, but even then, as dominant as the moral majority was at the time, guiding the Reagan administration, I never got the sense that the departments themselves were guided by this ethics and overtly proclaiming these ethics as the foundation of what we consider to be the American Republican system. But this is certainly happening now with the Department of Homeland Security tweeting out, with the president tweeting out. Read some of these tweets if you can, Michael, because I think you might have them at your fingertips.
Actually, what I forgot to do was to open up Twitch. I'm sorry, Persephone. Persephone's going to kill me. I just noticed because Space Shuttle 40 says that I have an O priest attitude with his so-called truth. I don't know how, but whatever. I didn't say there's no such thing as truth. There obviously is. It's truth is not so-called. There is truth. But either way, I'll
read one thing from Homeland Security tweeted out, Luke 23:46. On this solemn day, we reflect on the ultimate sacrifice our Savior made for all humanity. Trust in God's plan. And it's a picture, of course, of the crucifixion of Christ. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Michael, I thought one of the things that distinguished America from so many other countries was the hard wall separation between church and state. And the idea that we had a secular government and that pluralism was an ideal with respect to religious worship, because, your religion is a matter of your own conscience, and your conscience is protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. And so religion was seen by our founders as your business, not the government's business. But increasingly, it's becoming the government's business. They want to institute prayer in school again, Michael. They want to institute a 1776 curriculum with the idea that God and Judeo-Christian ethics are the foundation stone of this country's founding, the ideals upon which this country was founded.
Can I give some examples? Can I give some other examples?
Now we got these departments posting this overtly Christian stuff. It troubles me, man, and I'm sure it troubles you.
Both the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and State Department posted, "He is risen." The tomb is empty, though his through his sacrifice we are redeemed. Defense Department, the Justice Department post the resurrection of Christ. The White House, a video of an artist painting Jesus. Stuff about Easter miracles, all kinds of garbage, right? That they have no business doing. Now, you've got some, I think you've got some quotes in front of you from the founders on this topic, and maybe you can share those. I think it's definitely worthwhile to share.
Yeah. So here's something that I found quite interesting, Michael, because it speaks to the heart of what Americanism is, and at least what most objectivists talk about it as being founded on Enlightenment principles and not Judeo-Christian principles. This is from the U.S. Treaty number 122, the Treaty of Tripoli, Clause 2. The government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims. It is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption to the harmony existing between the two countries. This is a treaty that was negotiated under President George Washington, with Adams submitted to the U.S. Senate. The Fifth U.S. Congress unanimously ratified it, Michael. Now, the first sentence in here is what really gets me, because the conservatives claim across the board that we are a Judeo-Christian nation. However, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, it couldn't make it any plainer, in my view, that our government is secular, and that the First Amendment to the Constitution allows you freedom of religion, which means freedom of conscience. It is a completely personal matter that the government has no stake in and should make no claims on, Michael. And that's what makes these tweets disturbing, since the government seems to be heavily tilting towards an overt Christian policy, which it should not have. George
I'll read
Washington.
this to you. Can I read this to you real quickly here?
Is it another quote? Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's not a quote.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not. Well, it is kind of, but it's from the Constitution, from the First Amendment. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. They were clearly aware of this. Jim says, "In God we trust" squeak through only because it comports with deism. But "God we trust" did not become the motto till the 50s, Jim. So I don't know. I'm not sure what you're referencing.
Yeah, but it was back in the 18th century that it reared its ugly head, Michael.
As what though?
As a motto for the United States government.
No, it became the motto in 1956.
I know, but it first reared its ugly head back then.
Yeah, but not as the motto. That's what I'm asking. What was it when they? What did it do back then?
Yeah, that's a good question for James, because I thought it was became the motto in the 20th century, and that there was the motto that we actually use was the motto that was put on coins. But I think that motto was on coins for quite a while, Michael.
While adopted as the official national motto in 1956, the phrase first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War in 1864, and the first time it was on paper money was 1957.
E pluribus unum was the original. Okay, and God we trust comes from the Cold War against the atheist Soviets. Yes, that sounds absolutely true. Let me read this from George Washington's George Washington. The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. Let me say that again. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people, that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support. Michael,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get any clearer than this in my mind with respect to what the government's position on religion should be.
Well, that's true. And there's been people that have said, well, at least Trump doesn't cater to the religious right, or at least he's not in bed with the religious right. Yeah, he is.
But Michael, I mean, from the moment he was inaugurated the second time, and many of the Christian evangelicals wanted to anoint him as not as a sort of anointed human being who was anointed by God for the particular purpose of being the leader of our country. That narrative came out, Michael, after the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, where they said, look, God is preserving his life so that he can actually lead us to the promised land. And it seems ever since that day, he's been using Christian evangelicals to advance that narrative within the Republican Party. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely agree with that. I'm trying to figure out how I can comment here on what is this here? Twitch. I've got the Twitch page open. Persephone.
Yeah, I don't think he is religious, but being a pragmatist, he's using it as a lever of power because he can. And I think people who are religious are fools to fall for it, to be honest with you. The man who plays Lucifer and Chuck as his dad, aka God. Oh, says the man who plays Lucifer. Yes.
So, but my main point here is that these themes go together, right? The increase in presidential power, the straying from constitutional norms, the invocation of all this religious stuff. Then, Mark, Persephone, you have it. The list of Trump's claims regarding the Iran war. Can you put that up, please? Because this is just insane.
Yeah. Okay. You mean the ones that start on May 3rd, the tweet?
Yes, but well, no, not May 3rd.
Or March 3rd, sorry.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
want Persephone. Don't start reading it because I want to put it up so we can read. If Persephone will get it up here, I'm just waiting for Persephone here.
For all of those who think that Trump is the right leader for this war, what you're about to see, I hope, will convince you that you are in error. And maybe it's time to revise your premises respecting this guy. I understand you hate the left and you think this guy is the one who will fight the left, but we have something far more insidious going on here, Michael. This chaotic personality who also has authoritarian tendencies, who has no sense of being constrained by the Constitution, is a very dangerous element to have running around Washington right now.
Now,
right,
can we blow that up at all? Is it possible?
I can read, so I can read it out. I can read some of this stuff out.
All right. I wanted the people to be able to read along, but we'll let
these
you
are
do
these
it.
are Trump's victory timeline claims, folks. Starting March 3rd. I won't read out the dates, or should I, Michael? Should I read out the dates?
Yes.
March. I guess it does tell you how changeable this guy is. March 3rd, we won the war. March 7th, we defeated Iran. March 9th, we must attack Iran. March 9th, the war is ending almost completely and very beautifully. March 11th, you never like to say too early you won. We won. In the first hour, it was over. March 12th, we did win, but we haven't won completely yet. March 13th, we won the war. March 14th, please help us. March 15th, if you don't help us, I will certainly remember it. March 16th, actually, we don't need any help at all. Also on March 16th, I was just testing to see who's listening to me. Michael, I can't believe this is real, but it is. March 16th, if NATO doesn't help, they will suffer something very bad. March 17th, we neither need nor want NATO's help. Also on March 17th, I don't need congressional approval to withdraw from NATO. March 18th, our allies must cooperate in reopening the Straits of Hormuz. March 19th, U.S. allies need to get a grip, step up, and help open the Straits of Hormuz. March 20th, NATO are cowards. March 21st, the Straits of Hormuz must be protected by the countries that use it. We don't use it. We don't need to open it. March 22nd, this is the last time I will give Iran 48 hours to open the strait. Also on March 22nd, Iran is dead. March 23rd, we had very good and productive talks with Iran. March 24th, we're making progress. March 25th, they gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it's a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. I'm not going to tell you what the present is, but it was a very significant prize. March 26th, make a deal or we'll just keep blowing them away. March 27th, we don't need to have to be there for NATO. March 28th, no major quote. Well, that's surprising. March 29th, claimed talks were progressing. March 30th, open the Strait of Hormuz immediately or face devastating consequences. March 31st, claimed a deal was very close and that Iran would do the right thing. April 1st, April Fools, I might say, we'll see what happens very soon. April 2nd, repeated that a deal was likely while warning of a continued strikes. If not, April 3rd, something big is going to happen. April 4th, said Iran must comply immediately or face further consequences. April 5th, open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. This is the guy that is expanding executive power, who's going to war without congressional authorization, who his administration is doing all this religious stuff. I mean, you get law. He's supposed to give a speech, I think, today at 1:00. But,
yes.
But the bottom line is look, Iran has already been defeated. Iran is almost defeated. We're going to defeat Iran. They want to negotiate. They better negotiate. I mean, it's insane. We don't need the Straits of Hormuz. It's easy to open. They better open it. We don't care if it's open. I mean, you'll lose your mind. These are not the somebody talking that is fit to command the armed services. It's that, I don't. I don't know how much more to put this. I can't, like, I don't even want to talk about this guy anymore, but what are you going to do? He's the president of the United States. He keeps doing and saying dumb shit. He's got us in this war over there that's not constitutional. Nobody knows what the hell he's going to do next. He's saying now if by 8 p.m. tonight, if the Straits of Hormuz aren't opened, all hell's going to break loose. He's going to bomb their infrastructure and everything else. But previously said it doesn't matter if these are open, and also said they're going to open by themselves. So who the hell knows?
Yeah, Michael. I mean, his supporters say this is his negotiating tactic to keep his the people he's negotiating with on their heels. But unfortunately, we need people in office who are consistent and clear. The government has to have clear rules that everybody can follow. They have to have a clear understanding of where they are violating the law. They have to have a clear understanding. The markets like surety. They like certainty. They like to understand that there's a stable government in power that is going to protect the choices that they have to make, since they have to project over 100 years, Michael. I mean, a businessman has to project long term, not just for an election cycle, but for decades upon decades. And for that, they need a consistent, clear government. They need certitude in the laws and in the policies of the government. This is the last thing that Trump is providing right now. And this is why every time he makes a statement, the stock market goes crazy. There's volatility with his tariffs, folks. People in the tariff houses that have to actually execute these laws don't know what they're doing from one minute to the next. And how can business then make choices with respect to supply chains when things are so chaotic? The answer is they can't. I mean, Michael, if there was ever a perfect storm for economic catastrophe, and I hate to be that Cassandra right now, this is it. This is it. Multiple chaotic balls in the air simultaneously. You just can't keep track of them, right? And something has got to give. Balls in the air. What did I say? Balls in the air.
You said you just can't keep track of them. And all I could picture is you singing the AC/DC song about balls.
Big balls.
Yeah. I want to get to the cost of the war, but I do want to throw this out here because this is just, I don't know. It's very, to me, emblematic of this guy. President Trump, this is from the Free Press, issued a directive designed to save college sports on Friday. The rules would add new regulations around athlete compensation and the transfer portal and calls for more funds for women's sports. Why the hell is the President of the United States involved in college athletics?
Because, Michael, it is a part of the culture wars between the left and the right, and the trans movement, and he's staking his flag in the sand for his base, basically, with this kind of interference. But folks, in a capitalist society where the government was restrained by the Constitution, education would be private. It would be up to you. If you wanted to go to a school that had the rules that enabled a biological man to play in women's sports, that's your risk. You take that risk, and the consequences of your choices are completely and entirely on you. It's not up to the government to play daddy. It's not up to the government to protect you from your own choices if they are bad. It is up to you to hold your life as a value and to do your due diligence. Oh, God, this is driving me crazy, Michael.
Yes. So there's a great article. Maybe you want to read it. Maybe you want me to, not the whole article, but you get my drift. The Economic Costs of the Iran War by Roger Pielke Jr. He's a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. By no means a left-wing rag. It's a war hawk place, neocons. And he talks, first of all, that over the first 12 days of the war, it cost $12.7 billion. By April 1st, we get a total estimate of about $35 billion, of more than $210 per IRS tax return, or $260 per household. But he also wants to get into the effects on commodities, fuel and fertilizer. For instance, he touches on evidently, fertilizer. Some of the ingredients come out of Iran, but the costs, and he does say that this is plus or minus 25 On by September 30th, the regular gasoline retail will be about $546. I believe this is per person. And then on highway diesel, $465 per person. Total fuels, $1,011 per person. Nitrogen fertilizers will have cost $1.3 billion. No, that must be in millions. I'm reading this wrong. I hate these things. I think it's $546 million for gas, $465 for diesel, $1,011 million per in total. Nitrogen fertilizers, $1.3 billion. The cost.
Yeah, Michael. I mean, this just makes the point very concretely what we've been saying all along. The reason the president has to go to Congress and make his case is because we, the people, pay the price for these kinds of wars, and you have to get the approval of our representatives.
I think
right?
I totally. Because, I think I. By the way, let me just say, I think I totally misread the graph there. I hate these things, but because over here he talks some more about it. But the bottom line is, it's going to be a very, very costly war in addition to the taxes.
And speaking of that, I didn't throw my microphone. It just fell. I have to get a new microphone arm so I don't have to hold it up half the time or prop it up. But I'm going to the Dark Continent tomorrow, so I don't know that I'll be bringing this particular microphone with me. Michael, in addition to all these heavy costs that the American consumer are going to have to bear now because of the high costs of fertilizer, the high cost of gas, the high cost of all of the things that are ancillarily dependent on the trade that comes through some of these choke points over there in the Middle East. He has proposed a $1.5 trillion budget for the Pentagon. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it's a lot of money. I think what's it, like a 46% increase? I think the
43% increase.
Yeah, 43%. It's the largest increase since Truman in the Korean War. Now, there might be, people could push back, and I wouldn't, I don't entirely disagree with them that when war is necessary, it's going to cost money, and I think that's a valid point. But, and it's a huge but, right? I mean, this is like a Rikishi but for the wrestling fans out there.
What does that mean? Can you tell me what that just meant?
Rikishi had a giant ass, Mark. He's a wrestler with a giant ass.
A giant ass.
So he's a guy with a giant ass. Persephone, look up stink face, and you'll find something there from Rikishi. But either way,
stink face.
Yeah, when you've got an unconstitutional war being run by an untethered megalomaniac who makes the types of inconsistent statements that he's been making, when there's no victory in sight in this war in terms of real victory, then I would say you have to look at the cost as part of the equation. That's my only point here.
Look, and he's between a rock and a hard place, Michael, because to truly do what needs to be done, he's going to have to take out civilian infrastructure and possibly the energy infrastructure and also the oil producing and distributing capacity of Iran if he wants to make the regime so uncomfortable. That is wrong. Buddy, that is about as wrong as that gets. Is he on somebody's face?
That's the stink face.
That's so bad. I feel so bad for that person. What was I saying?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, come on. Do they pay enough money to do that, Michael?
It says Lucifer's lips. Oh, I removed Mark. I'm supposed to remove this.
Yeah, so Michael, what we have to do in order to affect regime change, which I think is the only victory that's really possible over there, would mean completely dismantling their energy infrastructure and their ability to distribute oil.
I got a question about that,
and which would just make all of these economic variables you're talking about exponentially worse.
They would. But here's my question. You said that before. I don't know the answer to this. Persephone, you can look this up. I know it's against international law to bomb civilian infrastructure. But what I want to know is, are we a party to the treaties that make it so? In other words, did we agree to this as Americans? Not me, but our government. Has our government signed on to this stuff?
Lee asks, how much do I have to have to Super Chat to get y'all in that position, Michael? How much does Lee have to give in a Super Chat?
It depends. Which one am I going to be?
Right. So I guess if you're the one going into Lucifer's lips, you would require a great deal more money than if you were the one actually doing the Lucifer's lips. You were going to put Persephone on. What is she doing?
She was just making a very bad face.
She doesn't have a bad face.
No, it wasn't
She's cute.
bad. Yes,
she's
okay.
making
The
a cute
United
face.
States is a party to the core treaty specifically. So, in essence, then he's talking war crimes. Now, generally speaking, I'm not a fan of signing on to these things. I'm not.
Yeah,
but
I don't believe in that
if you're
shit.
if you are signed on to them, I mean, you know.
Well, then, folks, you are obligated to not defend yourself anymore, because that's essentially what those laws do: is they prevent you from defending yourself.
I mean, you know, I don't like the problem I have is this: is if another country were to do that, we would call them out. Not me, not you and me, but I mean the government of America would call people out saying they're committing war crimes. You can't have it both ways, right? If you're going to sign on to these things and you're going to tout them, then you have to go by them. Otherwise, get out of them. Do you think I'm wrong
Michael,
on this?
Well, look, you make a deal, you have to abide by it. That's what integrity means. I think international law is bogus. I think these quote unquote claims of war crimes, when you have to take out certain infrastructure in order to defeat the enemy, calling that a war crime hobbles the defending country from really defending itself in such a way as to make the enemy stop permanently. So I think it's bogus. But if you signed on to it,
Well,
you signed on to it. Find a way to get out of it.
There's a way to look at this, I think, and then I'll let you do the capitalist thought of the day. There's a way to look at this, I think, that kind of brings into focus what we've been talking about. There's a president of the United States who thinks he can do whatever he wants. He said before that the only thing stopping him
It's his mind,
is his own morality.
which he says is
right?
great, by the way.
Yeah. So here's the problem. He's not tethered by the Constitution, by his oath of office, by the agreements that the United States has made with other countries. What you have is an arbitrary authoritarian who's not tethered by anything. That is not good.
Well, he's tethered by one thing, Michael, his whims. And that's scary because, look, in a capitalist society, I might as well segue into this. All the people in positions of power are tethered by a constitution. They cannot do anything other than is what is strictly and explicitly written in the Constitution. All the rest of the power goes to, guess who, folks? You. Your life is your responsibility. And no person from Washington or any state capital can tell you what to do. How to distribute your property, how to live is entirely up to you, provided you don't hurt other people, of course. In a capitalist society, a human being, a sovereign human being, takes a full responsibility for his own life. It doesn't devolve to government. It's not diffused through the voters. It is entirely up to you. Maximum freedom is what we're going for, Michael. I don't know. I'm a little pessimistic with the state of the world today, and when I see online the insane amount of envy and hatred for wealth and for productivity, I have very little faith that our message will prevail. I only hope that because we are touching grass and that our theories are rooted in reality, we will one day win this battle overall. Anyway, Michael, what say you?
Speaking of winning the battle, so the question the other day was, what can you do to spread this message? And Akira Felix said the best way to spread it has been Rand's novels. The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged have influenced a lot of people that would never have called themselves objectivists. He also says Mulholland Drive is horrible, therefore it is a horror movie. Jenna Kleem says, "Why would I want to spread it? If I'm going to spread the word, so to speak, it will be survivalist. Stay mindful." Greg Lewis says, "The only way rational egoism is going to be spread is by walking the walk." This guy says, "Wow, you ask for the audience opinions, then you fact check them. Although I guess it's not technically classified as a horror movie, it certainly has horror elements. Michael is insufferable sometimes." Oh. I'm sorry for being insufferable, but I fact check myself. So what am I going to say?
I want to just Killer Thieves and Lawyers says, never heard anything more terrifying than a truly insane man saying the only thing holding him back is his mind. Amen to that, my friend.
All right.
Look.
So I got to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And please go to YouTube and answer the question. My question is it insufferable if I fact check the audience? That's what I want to know. Is it wrong to fact check the audience?
Lee says, "Mike, you're not insufferable. You're perfect. You've done nothing wrong in your entire life, Michael."
Yes. Well, I am now in Lee's good graces again, and I will do my utmost to stay in them. All right, Mark. 2:30 p.m. today, we have Everyday Ethics with Persephone, and then at about 3:15 start, Corrections, Crime, and Culture with Persephone and myself. You will get all the insights from my formerly criminal mind that you need to understand the issues pertaining to prisons, crime, criminal justice, criminals, everything. I'm opening up the vault. Please join us on this very channel.
And folks, tomorrow you can join this channel, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Michael will be here maybe with Persephone. I'm going to be airborne to the Dark Continent, which is not Africa, folks. It is Europe. Europe is the Dark Continent. And I will be there for a couple of months, unless one of the 3 jobs that I'm up for comes through, in which case I will be going to some other state or Canada, perhaps. Anyway, folks, so you got some time to check your premises. So will you do me that favor, please? Check your premises. Peace.